afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever time of day it is when you're tuning into us. Welcome back to another edition of What Caught My Eye. I am the host this week, Stephen Komlo. With me is my friend, my confidant, my co-host, the boy Stephen Veschi. Boy, how you doing?
What up? I need some energy. I need to bring the energy today. I'm hurting. Tough night with a newborn. I'm hurting.
I started us out in all caps just to try and surprise you a little bit.
I need that remember that video of there's a guy on the Jaguars, like back when the Jaguars had their original unis. It was like late 90s, early 2000s. It's the D tackle. I forget his name. He was really good, but he would get the strength and conditioning guy or like the medical staff or whoever it was to just slap the hell out of him in the face to wake him up before a game. Like that's what I need. Just smack him.
To me, my first thought goes to the Stone Cold Steve Austin, Dan Patrick, ESPN commercial.
Yep.
Where he's like, "You think you could get me real quick, Dan?" And takes him across the back with the chair. That's what I'm thinking of. But speaking of newborns, our normal host, the coach, Nick, is not here with us again. 2 weeks, right? 2 weeks of
2 weeks, yeah.
Yeah, baby daddy number 2.
This is week 2. I think the baby's a week old.
Yeah, there we go. We're going into the second week.
Yes.
Yeah, there it is. Okay, we got there. Nick, Jordan, still thinking about y'all. Can't wait to meet the new one here. But the show goes on.
Show goes on.
Yeah. Revolutions. Parade comes to town. It's going down Broadway. But anyway, so we're going to start off with our top catch. Top catch is the most eye-catching thing that we noticed in all of sports over the past week. And this was an easy unanimous. It's going to be World Series, Yankees clinching, Juan Soto's 7-pitch at-bat against Gaddis of the Guardians, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that easily was the best thing. And after a day of watching college football, and then you turn on that game, you're like, oh, here we go. It couldn't get any more exciting, can it? No, Juan Soto makes it more exciting.
Yeah, we all agreed in our group chat that was just. And then your dad started a second group chat with us.
He did, yeah.
Yeah, a second.
I know he was locked in to that game.
100%. And it was an amazing sequence. We got to see it. We're going to do our best to break it down for you. If you need, at the risk of sending you to somewhere else, if you need a better breakdown, John Boy does a phenomenal baseball breakdown for this at bat. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to do our best to break it down for you. So
yeah, give me the pitch sequence. Give me that pitch sequence here.
So
it's against Gaddis as well, who's one of Cleveland's best relievers and has been phenomenal during the postseason.
Yes. And just to, let's set the stage here. We're in extra innings, top of the 10th. First and second on, 2 outs, scores tied 2-2. Okay, here comes Juan Soto.
Perfect guy for that.
I mean,
right?
Outside of Judge or maybe Stanton.
I rather have Soto in that position. One, he's won a World Series before. He's done it before, and he also had a ridiculous at bat in the World Series against Justin Verlander, doing something very, very similar, eerily similar. There's no one else I want in there. He raises his level of play so much. I mean, there's a reason why he does that little Soto shuffle that we all know well. And remember when he first did that for the Nats, and Zach Greinke was like, "Who's this punk trying to this kid that's 20 years old trying to show me up?" And
doing this Greinke threw shuffle move in front of him.
Yeah, Greinke got pissed off and threw one inside at him, and he was like, "Nah, I'm still coming for you." And now we're realizing that this guy's a future Hall of Famer. He just locks in. I mean, when he's doing that, it's almost like when Jeter did that lean, right? When he would take a pitch and he'd lean over the plate and fall over. That's his way of I'm on this pitch. I know exactly I'm following right to the end. That's Soto's shuffle, right? He's watching that thing. He's on every part of it. But continue with the sequence.
So pitch one, right out of the gates. Okay, Soto's on again, setting the stage. Man on first, man on second, 2 outs, top of the 10th. Hunter Gaddis, slider. Seems to be his go-to pitch. Slider for a ball. Okay, called ball. Not really a whole lot there. Okay. Gaddis, I think he came into the game with like a 1.5, 1.6 ERA or something stupid like that.
I mean, it doesn't shock me.
Yeah. But he is a slider pitcher. I did see, I think I saw two different people. One cited him as saying he throws like 60% sliders. Another that he throws like 65, maybe upwards of like mid to high 60s of percentage of sliders. So no surprise, pitch 2, we come back. He goes right back to the well. Pitch 2, slider for a called strike. And this was a perfect pitch. No, I mean it looked great. But meanwhile, like you can kind of see, because baseball, it's not just going to show the behind the mound cam the whole time. Like we get up close shots of Soto, resetting, messing with the glove, doing his shuffle, and capoeira, ponytail. But the whole time, like Soto, you can see it in his eyes. Soto's locked in, and he's compiling. Right, he's going through what he knows. He's going through what he's seen, what everybody else saw. I mean, but this again, perfect slider right at the knees. Pitch 3, third slider in a row, and Soto fouls this one away. And I think a lot of people, going off of like reactions from what you can see, like behind home, thought that this was the pitch. I think a lot of people thought that this was going to be the one he hammers, but fouls it away, and so he's behind in the count, 1-2. Then we go to pitch 4, changeup.
That's where I think, I know you thought like maybe pitch 5 where he got the changeup. I feel like pitch 4 where he got the changeup and fouled it is where he was like, he owns this pitcher right now. Because if you're a slider pitcher and you're throwing the slider, and then he still has to be ready for that heater, right? Geared up for it, and his ability to foul off a changeups, I can tell you right now, changeup's probably the hardest pitch to hit.
Mm-hmm.
If you are not,
especially if you get the arm motion where you can sell it,
they literally, if you get a good changeup against you, there's a reason why they call it pulling the string. Because it feels like someone reached out, like that the ball is attached to a string and someone pulled it right before it gets to home plate. That's what it changed. Every part of a changeup looks like a fastball until the last like 10 feet. And then it just looks like someone pulls a string. So you have to be so locked in and have your timing so well to just foul that pitch off. That's where I think he was really locked in.
And while we're on the subject of, being able to foul pitches away, when most people, when we're talking about the Yankees, odds are they're going to talk about Judge's power hitting and Stanton's power hitting. And Soto, while he does have his power is nothing to like forget about.
41 home runs.
Yeah, I mean he has power, but his ability to hit for contact is also top tier, and not just hit for contact, but his ability to foul pitches off too. Yes. I think it was Jeff Passan. Jeff Passan said somewhere that Soto has a swinging strike rate of 7.4% this regular season, which is actually the worst of Soto's career, but the league average is 11.1%. Which, I mean, so Soto's among...
He doesn't swing and miss.
Yeah, exactly. He does not swing and miss. In fact, he's in the top 20, 25, I'd imagine, of players who swing and don't miss. So that's again, just to reiterate your point from earlier, the script wrote itself, right? Plot armor. I mean, this is the guy. This is who you want. This is why you bring him in. And this is why, hopefully, if you're a Yankees fan, he gets paid next year and he sticks around. 1-2 pitch, changeup at the knees, fouled off, count remains 1-2. Then we're back, pitch 5. Another changeup is fouled away. And this one, it was not Gaddis's greatest pitch. Way up there, but like a lot of people I think were speculating that this probably would have been a called ball, but when it's 1-2, extra innings, 2 outs, 2 strikes, you got to defend.
Yeah, can't let go.
No, you can't let go. You got to defend. And the reason I was saying, Stevie and I were talking about this before the show, obviously, and I said that this looked like the pitch where Soto kind of locked in and said, "Yeah, I got your ass now," because once he figured out, I mean, he sees two changeups, fouls them both away in wildly different parts of the zone, and he was able to still, hitch his swing and foul it away and spoil the pitch. And I think once he realizes, okay, so when the changeup comes, odds are I'm gonna foul this away, so that leaves the slider and the fastball. Okay, pitch 6, right? Gaddis goes back to the slider, fouled away again. So right now, what is that? That's 4 pitches fouled away for that on 2 strikes, right? Let's see,
3
pitches fouled
pitches,
away for yeah. So then the slider comes for pitch 6.
Does he mouth like I got him?
Yeah, I think he says something to that effect, like "I got your ass" or "I got him now." And you can see he actually kind of goes back into the box and resets with just a little more swagger. So 6 pitches into the at bat, Soto's seen nothing but sliders and changeups, and again you can see the wheels moving. He's spoiling away the changeup. He's spoiling away Gaddis's bread and butter slider. And he knows in the back of his head, I haven't seen a fastball yet. He might try to speed things up on me. And pitch 7, Gaddis hums a 95, almost 96 mile per hour fastball above the zone. And Soto goes and gets it and just takes that thing so yard. And
you know how ready for that pitch you have to be because of how freaking hard that is to not
that
see.
That thing is going to creep up on you.
To
too.
not see, 95, I bet looked like 100. Mm-hmm. Right after you saw slider, changeup, slider, like 95 probably looks like 100, and to be at the top of the zone, right? Mm-hmm. That's where you can't fault the pitcher for that at all, right? That's just a better hitter.
Yeah,
95 at the top of the zone after not seeing a fastball to get your hands up there to get on top of the ball, that was remarkable, and then to send it yard.
Yes, to keep just to come around on that thing and to really like go up and get it, like Gaddis tries to climb the ladder and maybe spoil one or maybe like reset Soto's eyes, I'll throw it maybe in Gaddis.
It's a waste pitch, right? But it's close enough to where it's close enough to get him to chase. That was almost honestly watching that pitch, like maybe if you got it on his hands, maybe if you threw that on his hands a little bit more, but where it came out of his slot. So where it came out of his slot, like his pitching hand, that almost looks similar to what his sliders come out because the slider's going to break into Soto, right?
Yeah.
So where it comes out of his hand slot looks, you got to be so ready for that fastball. That I'm almost trying to go through the sequence again in my mind and go, like if I'm playing MLB The Show and I throw that sequence and someone takes me yard, I'm probably like restarting the game or chucking something. Because I'm like, there's no chance in hell that works in real life.
Reloading and going back to your last save point.
Yeah, like there's no way that works in real life. Like I threw every pitch perfect. And I even like got that waste pitch up there and goes 100%. Yard in that moment. Like that's Juan Soto's good.
It's just one of those things where like as a pitcher, like you've got to be kicking yourself, but like what else you got to do, right? Like you can't.
There's nothing you can do. There's like we've seen some pitchers like they miss their spots, right?
Yes.
Or something, and it's like, oh well, that's a horrible pitch, and the dude just takes it. This is just a better hitter.
Yeah, and that's the scary part of that section of the lineup too, because let's extrapolate it. Let's say like, you know what, I don't want Soto in this spot. I'm gonna walk him. I'll walk the bases loaded, get one more out. Who's the next person up?
Next person's Aaron Judge, who just had the 5th or a top 5 all-time offensive year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And then Stanton somehow going nuts. But this is what they needed because, like, God, if you watch the Yankees, like when we picked the teams last week, we're like, oh, who do you think was going to the World Series? We said
wrong.
We were way wrong. But I just kept thinking, like, I'm watching the Guardians-Yankees series and just going, the Yankees, the amount of mistakes they have made on the field, on the base paths, all these little things. And you go, this is not a World Series team, and they're in the World Series, and they have a great chance to win it. And I just keep watching. I'm like, how do they keep getting away with it? They, as John Sterling said, they run the base paths like drunks.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
I've never seen so many bad base running mistakes. Like, this is little league shit.
These bad stretches, everything. It's so bad. And but if we're gonna talk mistakes, I don't think the Yankees were the worst of the two. The Guardians made
a lot of mistakes.
Awful mistakes. I mean,
they let them off the hook.
Defensively, neither of these teams,
which is surprising.
They did not. Neither of these teams, once the ball was in play, neither of these teams looked like playoff teams.
Which blew my mind because the Guardians defensively were, I think, they were one of the best teams in the league.
Yeah,
right. They were in the top defensive metrics, and you saw it show up in the Detroit series.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, they look fantastic. That's why I thought if they just played
so different, they didn't look like they were ready for the moment.
They were not. That's the difference, right?
And
that's the difference.
You know what else really stood out to me about this Guardians team, and I think that this is also this ended up being a major chink in the armor, was the Yankees had Clase solved.
Yes.
From the first time he came out. He's supposed to be their supposed to be their foundation. He's supposed to be their support beam. When the going gets rough, bring him out and let him shut an inning down. The Yankees had that dude's number.
Well,
from the first intro.
Oh yeah. He gave up more runs in the postseason than he did in the regular season.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's how ridiculous that is. He gave up 5 runs
and
in the
more
regular
home
season.
Runs too.
Yeah, that's surprise, and that should show you how freaking hard it is to get outs in the postseason, right? Especially the last 3 outs. The last 3 outs are always the hardest. And that's the reason why, when you look at Rivera and what he did, and you're like, those numbers are freaking stupid.
Mm-hmm.
It is the hardest to get those last 3 outs in the biggest moments. Everything's up here, right? And you're doing it in New York, and you put up the most insane numbers. That's why he's the greatest closer of all time. We just saw maybe one of the best regular season closing pitching performances, ever, right? I think his ERA was 0.6 something or 0.7.
Yeah.
Giving up 5 runs all year, and then postseason is a little different.
For the Guardians, for the ALCS, it was night and day.
Yep. Not ready for the moment, right?
No, I don't know what was going on, but they need to figure that out.
I will say this: if the Yankees don't clean up their shit, they're going to get dog walked.
Oh, 100%.
Because you can't make those mistakes against LA.
That was everyone's knock for against the Yankees, for both, not just Cleveland, but also for Kansas City. Everyone was saying Kansas City and Cleveland are going to small ball the Yankees to death because
that's what I thought. Yeah,
because they don't have an infield and the Yankees are too slow.
And the Yankees rely on the home run, but Stanton caught fire, right?
Yeah,
Soto locked in. You got and by the way, Torres was having some great at bats, much better at bats than I think I've ever seen him have.
Yeah,
just putting the ball in play and going to the right field and just doing little things like that. That was surprising to me that he almost looks like he changed his approach to actually put the ball in play.
Yeah,
so their offense looks like they are doing exactly what they need to do. And by the way, remember the Rizzo play?
I do.
Where he goes right through the wickets.
Mm-hmm.
And I also he hasn't played in a while and then gets put in as a defensive replacement. I actually didn't really like it just because he's been out so long, but he's a veteran, so you expect him to be ready and to go, and he looked bad. But
and boy,
that's another thing where the Yankees got away with it, and Cleveland you can't let them do that. But
they got away with a couple things, and it was from batting to pitching, it was everything sort of the stars lined up for him. And again, if you're a Yankees fan, you got to be hoping that it stays this way just through the end of the month, because they got past some really dicey situations and some a lot of really I thought were odd, like bullpen calls, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I understand like the need for Clay Holmes and like to keep him like in the rotation because he's in your bullpen, he's part of the team, like, and pitching him is like could benefit you, but like I just it blows my mind every time they call that dude out. And I think
Well,
it
so
was like
here's what happens too with the postseason, especially when you start getting into game like a 7 game series,
yeah,
is that the more you use your bullpen, the more the other team sees it.
yeah,
So all these teams, so like the Yankees using him in a lot of high leverage situations. Well, his arm's
mm-hmm.
getting tired, and you see him more and more and more, right? And then Cleveland on the opposite side, there were a couple games where they strictly went bullpen, and they love their bullpen, but the more you use them, they're just slightly less effective, and
Yeah.
then the more the Yankees see them, and you start getting to them, right?
But that game where what was it? I think it was Cleveland was losing going into the ninth inning, I think, or it was tied going into the ninth inning. I think it was game 4. Or no, it was game 3. And Cleveland blew up in the ninth inning or exploded for 2 runs. And I think the Yankees brought Clay Holmes in to close the game out, but they had used Luke Weaver in the inning before. And like that small thing, like Weaver has been pitching a lights out this postseason, and like to not see him come in an
So
inning later or something like that, like it was very, very strange because
yeah, so they used him in the biggest high leverage situation. So that's the new analytics now, is
mm,
that you don't need to like why have the closer strictly be a closer, right? Because like in the old days it was your closer's there because the last 3 outs are the hardest 3 outs to get, right? That's why you
yeah,
had your best pitcher as your best relief pitcher as your closer. But now if you get in trouble later in the game from pretty much 6th inning on, let's say,
yeah,
if you get in trouble and you really need to shut the door because you think this could
just
this
stop
this
the
inning could
bleeding.
spiral and it could lose you the game, right? And we'll figure out the ninth inning when we get there. But we need to stop now. Then you put in your best
Mm,
reliever and you go, we need to shut them down. So that's why you saw Weaver come in, and that's why you've seen like Hill come in some of
yeah,
these lefty matchups, and then on the other side, Cleveland with Gaddis, and Clase
like
trying to get 5 outs. Like,
I understand the analytics behind it, and I don't know if we've publicly said it on here, but like it's just stuff like, again, analytics, okay, that's the world we live in, whatever. Baseball's been resistant to it for as long as they can. Shout out Moneyball. Um, but like
baseball is all analytics.
but like I don't, maybe we might not have said this, maybe Nick has, but like when it's a manager like Boone who is a polarizing manager, right? I don't think I've ever met anybody who's like Aaron Boone's all right. You
Right,
know,
indifferent.
it's either exactly, it's either like greatest manager, like thank God we have Aaron Boone
If you're a
managing the
Yankees
bench.
fan, before this was always God. I can't believe he's still there. How is he
Yeah,
still there?
it looked like they were keeping him around just so he could set like the ejection record, and then like he was gonna
Yeah.
like be put out to pasture. But here we go, right? Um, but yeah, I don't know, man. It's for me like as a guy who just I don't really care for Aaron Boone. I'm not gonna say I hate him. I'm not gonna say I despise him, but I don't really care for him as a manager. It's just hard for me to kind of like some of the decisions he makes don't really sit well with me. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to like go on a tangent here about Booner, but
Well,
uh,
he's been rarely correct in his decisions, and we'll say now that he's in the World Series, he pressed some right buttons. But it's also really weird that he wasn't pinch hitting anyone. And if you look on the other side, like Stephen Vogt was going through his bat, like his entire roster. He was like, I want this guy to like manipulate, like. And sometimes sometimes like I think for Boone, it's better just to do nothing,
mm-hmm.
right? You don't need to do it.
Let the other guy, and you know I think that's what you can expect from like someone who's in a big market position like Boone with the New York Yankees is, you know, like even though you haven't been there, Act like you've been there. Let the other guy coach himself into a hole, right? It's not the only time we've seen something like that. Like Belichick Carroll is another good example.
Oh my God, like, yeah, overthinking on the goal line instead of just hand the ball off to Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah, let the other guy overthink it, get lost in the sauce.
Just run it over to me. No, Marshawn, I can throw it.
Yeah, I'll just throw it over. I'll just throw it. I'll just throw it. But yeah, so it's. I mean, that's. Well, I mean, I guess we got to give Boone his credit, right? Because Soto's extra inning go-ahead home run and series clinching go-ahead home run was just the second time this has been done for the Yankees, and the other person to do it,
Aaron Bleepin Boone.
Aaron Bleepin Boone in Game 7 of the, what was that, the 07?
2003.
03 ALCS.
That was off of my guy, the late Tim Wakefield.
R.I.P. Tim Wakefield.
R.I.P. God, that knuckleball is so good. And he threw one bad knuckleball. And it was by the way, Aaron Boone hitting that home run, I think Aaron Boone may have been batting last in the order. He was the worst player on that team.
Not in that moment.
I know. And all that matters is that moment.
Maybe that's why he doesn't pinch hit.
Yeah, because he would have been pinching.
I've been that guy.
That's a good point. I never thought about it like that.
Revolutions.
That's good.
So, Yankees punch their ticket. Congratulations, New York. You finally made it back. Actually, you know what?
15 years.
Let's we gave Booner a shout out. Now we got to give Jason Alexander a shout out. Right?
Oh yes, good call. Yes.
We need to give Jason Alexander his just desserts. So this is just so that it's super viral. Obviously, if you guys listen to us, or even if you just know us and have been in a room with us for 30 seconds, you know that me, Stevie, Nick are all huge Seinfeld fans, and we're starting to see some good old Seinfeld callbacks here, because the Yankees in these cold October nights have been wearing some throwback equipment, and the throwback equipment is your turtleneck Yankee branded thermals to help combat the cold. Well, these are turtlenecks from, what is it, the early 2000s, late 90s?
Yeah, yes.
And
it's a natural fiber.
It breathes.
It breathes. Imagine that your players are 5 degrees cooler.
I think you might have something there, George. Yeah, so there's a scene in Seinfeld where Jason Alexander's character, George Costanza, while he's working for the New York Yankees, approaches Buck Showalter and confronts him about the polyester uniforms, and he pitches the idea of switching over to cotton because it's, again, a natural fiber. It breathes, your players will be cooler, and not only will they be cooler, they'll play better because of it, blah, 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 blah. And now the Yankees are going back to the well. They're bringing out these retro, dusty turtlenecks that are made of cotton. And so the internet's exploding and losing their mind over this. And it was like Christmas come early.
Oh my, when I saw that, I was dying.
It's so funny. And and it's perfect too, because at the very end of a season where the jerseys have been dog shit, players ripping their pants, ripping their shirt because of these new material Fabletics jerseys. It's, oh my gosh. And so now to see the Yankees pull a George Costanza and come out with cotton undergarment, oh my gosh, it's perfect. What's next? Lou Gehrig's pants. We'll see Judge on the field flopping and twitching.
If we gotta move forward, we gotta tear down the past. Yeah. Babe Ruth is nothing, just a fat old man with skinny little girl legs.
Yeah, so shout out to the Yankees. I mean, the content is just endless. I can't tell you how many reels and posts I've seen breaking this down, and then just having George's face down here, and it's really funny. But
and we won the World Series in 6 games.
Yeah, in 6 games. It's simple mathematics, gentlemen.
Simple physics. Velocity, the trajectory T. And gravity, of course, remains constant.
Just like the script for Juan Soto's at-bats write themselves, the content for this postseason continues to write itself. I mean, I'm in heaven over here. This is great. On top of quality baseball too. What more could we ask for, right? So, anyways, Yankees punched their ticket. Let's head over to the NL. Dodgers defeated the Mets, and I don't think for a lot of people it's a surprise. I mean, we kind of we kind of saw the Mets do what the Mets do, right?
Yeah, I mean, just not get over the hump there.
The thing that stood out to me the most about this Dodgers team, I mean, is Shohei Otani, obviously, but again, our good friend and friend of the program, Jeff Passan, I saw him post this stat. I think I might have sent it to you. Shohei is batting .818 with runners in scoring position over his last 22 at bats.
Yes, that is the
not his OPS, not his slugging.
That's just his average. He's average. 18 for 21 or something.
So for those of you that don't know, runners in scoring position, second and third, and it's if you've ever played MLB The Show, this is where your clutch stat comes into play, being able to hit an RBI with a runner in scoring position, and Shohei is batting. He's 8 out
over
of 10
4
pitches.
over 4/5 of the time he's getting a hit.
Yes. If you pitch to Shohei 10 times with runners in scoring positions, he's hitting at a minimum 8.
That's so bonkers. That's just an absolute bonkers stat.
Yes.
And then they did try to walk him one time, and I think Mookie Betts hit a triple or something. And it's well, where do you want to go with this? Because Mookie Betts is also on fire.
Yes, those two are just lighting it up, and I think it's also very difficult because Shohei obviously being part of the only member of the 50-50 club. If he's on base, he's gonna run. He's gonna take off on you, and I think one of the most dangerous things in postseason baseball is runners.
Yes.
Base runners is the most dangerous thing because you will get small balled to death.
I mean, right? a walk is a rally.
Yes.
In the postseason.
Yes.
Right? You get one guy on base. I mean, all of a sudden the pitcher, right, and he's looking over to Shohei because he doesn't want him just taking off, and then he's just slightly distracted, and Mookie Betts is up, or Freddie Freeman, or whatever, and then it unravels. It unraveled quickly in that Mets series, just all of a sudden a couple of innings, and it's just you look back, I went to the bathroom and came back. I'm like, how'd 5 runs just get scored?
Yeah, what just happened? Wow.
Yeah, but I will say though, Shohei typically leads off, correct? He is typically their leadoff hitter,
which means the guys at the bottom of the order are getting on.
Bingo.
The guys who are supposed to be the worst batters on the team are finding ways to get on.
Exactly. That's so big in the postseason. The Kike Hernandez, the Chris Taylors.
Kike is having a good year, a good postseason, right?
He is. Yeah.
Yes.
This is why you get a guy like him. He does exactly this. He plays very good defense. He's a utility guy, so you can put him anywhere. He's always going to be in there, and he's a tough at bat. He's a nasty at bat, right? He's just one of those guys where this guy's
hard to get out.
Yeah, this guy's not a great player, especially regular season, but he flips the switch in the postseason. It's like Julian Edelman, right?
He's been there,
right? All of a sudden, he gets in the postseason. You're like, why can't I get this guy?
Mm-hmm.
But he's getting on. A couple guys in the back end of that order are getting on and setting the table for Shohei. You have to let's look out for that matchup, right? Not the Shohei matchup, but let's look out for the back of the bottom 7, 8, 9 of the Dodgers lineup versus the Yankees pitching, and let's see what happens because you have to have Shohei with no one on.
Yeah,
Shohei and Mookie with no one on or one man on.
You need to retire the bottom side of the order in order.
Yes,
because if anyone gets on when those power hitters start coming through,
all of a sudden
you're bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
You're bleeding. But you mentioned his name a little bit ago, but we were on a roll. I didn't want to stop you. I saw Freddie Freeman is going to be in the lineup for Game 1. I think he was out with a sprained ankle or something like that.
His ankle's been messed up
a high ankle sprain.
Yeah, the whole postseason he's been hurt.
The reporter pretty much asked him, all right, so you know what I'm going to ask you? He was like, ask me. He's like, are you going to be in the lineup for Game 1? And he said, without a doubt.
Yeah, he's not missing that.
There's no doubt. You guys can expect me to be penciled in for Game 1.
Yeah,
he didn't say anything beyond it. I mean, there's a chance he goes out there and leaves it all in the field for Game 1.
Hey, I mean, it's better than nothing, right? I mean, he's going to have – I mean, the first game is, what, Friday?
Yes.
He's got almost – I mean, he's got, what, five days to at least
Tickets have already eclipsed the $1,000 mark, by the way.
That seems about right.
Mm-hmm.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
I mean, I keep thinking, like, some of these big-time games – it happens in every sport. I mean, think about the Super Bowl. Who's there? There's not the real fans that are there.
Well, right? No, and it's the Super Bowl's also played at a neutral site.
It is a neutral site, so at least
they're sold years probably a year in advance, right?
Yeah,
they know where next year's Super Bowl is going to be.
Yeah, it's
like the All-Star game.
Yeah,
you know,
it's too much. Like, I understand you want to maximize your profit here, but man, can we get the guys that were there during the regular season, during these first postseason, the guys that are nuts, especially if you're New York. New York will have their nut job fans. I think Joey Votto was on Dan Patrick's show.
Oh, yeah, I mean, odds are if you can afford to live in New York, and this is a gross overgeneralization. If you can afford to live in New York, you can go to a baseball game.
Go to a game. It was a cool 1,000. But Votto was basically saying that, like Dan Patrick asked him, difference between Yankees fans and Dodgers fans. He was like, well, Dodger fans, like the first, few innings, like, they're still filing into their seats. It's movie stars, it's like whatever. It's like Yankee Stadium. He's like, maybe the first row is like some people filing in, but he's like, when you get to the roll call they do, he's like, dude, it's nuts. Mm-hmm. And he said he was playing in a regular season game. They were up 3-1. And like all of a sudden later in the game goes, you can feel it. He's like, you can feel everything coming up. And it's like, and we lost that game because like we weren't ready. And he's like, this is a regular season game. He's like, postseason's completely different. Like that stadium's different. I said last week that I'd put it up against any stadium there is.
Speaking of this is totally off the subject of the World Series. I mean, it's baseball, but it's off the subject of like Dodgers Yankees. I realize we never talked about it. Did you see the thing about Ian Happ buying? No. So Ian Happ in the last home game of the Cubs season, he threw a ball into the stands, and he had written on it, and he had taped a couple like $100 bills to it, and the ball said something to the effect of like, you guys have been so big in supporting me this season, and I want you to know I appreciate it. Beers are on me for this game.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. So, like, like that when you started talking about the roll call, that came to my mind, because the roll call is just that is as big a tradition in Yankee Stadium as like John Denver in the 7th inning stretch in Baltimore is. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. So if you don't know what the roll call is, basically the Yankees fans in the right field bleachers shout out. They go in around the field. Basically, I think either they start in the outfield and then work their way into the infield. I believe.
Juan Soto.
Yeah, they call out every name and they do that until the player acknowledges them. And sometimes it's like one, and sometimes the player's like, or they'll catch it between a pitch or whatever, or sometimes the players like kind of bringing it up like, yeah, I want to hear my name a little bit more.
Yeah, right. Let's get this on ESPN. Like, I'm sweating out here.
Yeah, but look for that place to be a little different. This will be fun for LA going into New York. That's where I want to see. Like, that's the series. That's the part of the series that I want to see is Dodgers going into New York.
Yes.
New York going to LA. We'll see. Good baseball,
I've already seen a lot of like New York fans posting that they got their tickets already to go to LA for Game 1.
Oh, to go to LA
because LA has home field advantage because they had the higher winning percentage. But yeah, I saw a lot of people posting that Yankees fans got tickets to go to LA. Bob Does Sports is actually one of them.
Okay.
Because they have, like, I guess Bob Does Sports has their YouTube golfers, for those of you that don't know. They have film session scheduled at a course nowhere near New York while the Yankees are in town. So they posted something like, we got to do it. And so they're going to LA for game 1.
That's awesome.
Just imagine, just going to take the day off and, fly to sit in traffic and then go to an expensive game.
Right. The most overrated stadium there is.
We've talked about that one before. I know we have.
Yes, we have.
Talked about that before.
Yes, we have. I think their stadium's so overrated.
No personality.
No, it's ugly looking. I'm sorry, it is.
It doesn't look good.
The seats, by the way, do you know why their seats are painted that gross blue and yellow? The yellow looks like it's from the 60s or some. It looks awful. It's supposed
to be the sun setting on the horizon or some bullshit like that.
Correct. Yeah. Very LA.
LA.
Valley Girls.
Yeah, right. Oh man. All right, so game 1, like we said, is going to be Friday. Tune in. I'll actually be with my dad. I'm going down to the lake Thursday after work to play in a golf tournament Friday. So I'll be with some Yankee fans Friday night. Yeah.
Game starts at 8 Eastern.
There we go.
Be ready.
Time to lock it in, baby. The World Series is here. It's time to everyone's chasing their pennants.
There's a clip from The Simpsons that always geeks me out, where they go to an apple cider, like a cidery.
Yeah.
And Marge is like, wow, it's such a beautiful day. I feel so bad for all those people cooped up inside watching Game 7 of the World Series. Homer's just like, yeah, who would want to do that?
Hand up. That's a hand up. I'm there. That's funny. All right, so that wraps up our baseball coverage, yeah? You good there?
Yeah, I'm good there. I'm good. That was good stuff.
Yeah, so follow up next week. We'll be talking about what happened over the weekend with the beginning of the World Series. But let's talk some college football now. Let's take this into your realm, your area of expertise.
Let's go. Yeah, let's go a little college football.
Yeah.
We're over halfway through the college football season, so this is really when you start seeing people separate the wheat from the chaff.
Love chaff.
No, you want to be wheat. Why would you want to be chaff? But basically, the really big matchups that we had over the weekend: Georgia, Texas, that was in Austin, and Alabama, Tennessee, and Knoxville. Georgia, Texas, it looked like we saw Georgia's defense come back to their form. They had been a little bit off, a little bit struggling, and that was a defensive dominant performance. Quinn Ewers, who I think is a top 5 quarterback in the nation, looked shook. And then he brought in Arch Manning for a series to the end of the half, and that didn't look any better. And for Texas, to me, there's still, this is what's great too about this now. That one loss doesn't destroy your season. Georgia had to win, right? It still wouldn't have completely derailed them. They still would have had a chance, but it would have been a little bit more difficult. So Georgia definitely playing with a little bit more desperation. Now Texas has that one loss. They can afford that one loss to Georgia.
Yeah.
But now you got to really lock in. So Texas Longhorn fans, hook them. It's not over, okay? It's a bad game. Georgia's defense looked like they came back to form. Georgia's still really, really good. So it's not over. You'll be fine. Let's see, who does Texas have coming up? Vandy, you better be ready for Vandy because they're going to give you a game. And that's Vandy, too.
And after getting pushed around and bullied by Georgia, that makes Vandy that much harder.
I don't know. That might be a wake-up call. This might be Texas wins by 40. I'm not kidding. This I think losing that game.
Do you think they're going to go in and just
dismantle
the board like that?
Texas's offense is too good to be shut out the way they were. Vandy doesn't have the athletes to line up. I love Vandy because their quarterback and their coach is phenomenal, and they've been playing great. But that might be a wake up. I could easily see that game being like, oh, that's a 30-point game, just because Texas gets the wake up call from Georgia, and then goes into Vanderbilt and Texas, you got to win. You can't. You lose that game to Vandy, you're really close to being done. Yeah. That's why. Because you have Florida, Arkansas, Kentucky, A&M. None of those are easy. So the back half of the schedule, they should win all those games. At A&M is going to be fun if A&M continues to play well. But Texas is the better team, quote unquote, better team.
Yeah.
But that's also why you play these games on the field, and results matter. So it's one of my things that really grinds my gears.
Oh, here we go.
There are a lot of people in the college football media that want quote unquote power rankings and not just AP poll rankings or rating these teams 1 through 25. They want,
what do they want to go back to, like the BCS?
The BCS. No, it's not like that. They want to do. It's kind of what we've seen when the college football playoff rankings come out. Like they'll come out soon, but they come out around this time. Where especially when you had the 4-team playoff, where it was always that was so talked about, and now that we have 12 teams. You have a little bit more. You have more teams coming in, a little bit more leeway, and more head-to-head matchups that have happened. And they want these power rankings. And what power rankings are basically almost setting Vegas lines and saying, "Well, this team's really good. I know they lost this game to this same team, but if they played them again, they'd still be favored on a neutral site. So they're actually better than them. So I'm going to put them ahead of them." Like, no, they just lost to them. They just lost a head-to-head matchup. Why are you ranking them higher?
Okay.
That's what these power rankings are. They're basically saying, well, this team's talent level, they have a lot of 4-star, 5-star athletes. Their talent level is higher, right? And they should be favored by this Vegas line because we all know Vegas lines are foolproof. And talent is all that matters. That's what we know, right?
Yeah.
And results on the field don't matter. Basically, I responded to one of these power ranking things and said, why don't we just not, like, let's just line up the 12 best, quote unquote, talented teams and have them in the playoff. Like, why are we playing the games? Do results not matter? There's a team out there, and I'm going to tell you right now, a team out there that has not trailed the entire year.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, and if you said the Indiana Hoosiers, you'd be correct.
Covering the spread.
This team not only has not trailed, they just beat the brakes off of Nebraska, who Nebraska's a team on the up and coming. Nebraska's not great, but they're not bad. They're a team that was on the up and coming. They had only one loss going into that game. Indiana just beat them 56-7.
Yeah. That was a shellacking.
Yeah, undefeated on the year. I mean, I know their schedule, they haven't played, the best teams. But if their helmet was silver with stickers on it that represented Buckeyes, they'd be ranked top 5.
Ooh.
But they're not. What are they ranked? 10th?
Subtle. They're Indiana?
Yeah.
They're 16th.
They're ranked 16th still? No.
I guess that's what they were against Nebraska, wasn't it?
Yes.
So
there should be
13th. They're 13th.
13th. That's a joke.
Yeah.
I can look through this now. I'm looking through this. Let's see. Why did Georgia jump Penn State? Because they had that one win in Austin. Penn State's undefeated in a Power 5 team. That's a Big Ten school. They should be 2. Why is Miami sitting at 6? At 7-0? They just won again. They just beat Louisville on the road.
Miami.
Why is Iowa State and BYU, 2 Power 4 schools, sitting at 7-0? And they've beaten BYU, beat SMU, BYU. Let's see who they beat. They beat Kansas State.
You could definitely keep going down the list. I mean, Indiana undefeated, Pittsburgh undefeated, Army, Navy undefeated.
Army and Navy aren't Power 4 schools, so that's a little bit different. Mm-hmm. But those other schools, Pitt should be up there.
Yeah.
I mean, until you lose, it's because your brand name isn't good. That's the reason, and it bothers the hell out of me. And I can't understand why we do this. Like, I know it looks ridiculous if you said Iowa State should be ranked 4th or Indiana should be ranked 4th. It might look ridiculous because you're not used to seeing that team there.
And Texas drops all the way to 5th in the week 9 AP
loss,
poll.
Right?
Yeah, 1 loss to Georgia. Who
I mean, but they should be because they should be dropping because I mean I'd like to put Miami ahead of them.
Yeah.
Do I think Texas is better than Miami? I do. But that's not what the results on the field say, right?
I mean, it's fair.
Until you lose a game, why am I ranking you lower? Like, why is Indiana so far down there? Why is Iowa State so far down there?
But I mean, this I think comes back to like those popular phrases that we heard last year with like the playoff like snubs and snuffs was the difficult degree of difficulty for the schedule and the quality of the losses. Right.
Yeah, I mean
those were phrases that we heard a lot last year, and like you could. I mean, I think, and again, I'm playing devil's advocate here. Is like, okay, so yes, you have there are undefeated teams that are not as high as you, Stevie, think they should be.
So let's go through
Georgia being ranked schedule. Number 2. Their quality of loss was to a very difficult opponent.
So let's go through Georgia's schedule, right?
Okay.
They beat the brakes off Clemson. That looks phenomenal now because Clemson's playing really well, right?
Yes.
34-3 to start the year. That looks great. You get your cupcake with Tennessee Tech, and then you go at Kentucky. Kentucky's good. Not anything special. They're okay. You won 13-12. That doesn't look good. And then you go into Bama, and you came back in that game, but you were down 28-0 at one point. Bama's now lost 2 as well. Bama lost to Vanderbilt, and then just Bama's having trouble with the Tennessee teams. They lost to Tennessee and Knoxville, which was, I shouldn't say a great game. There were a lot of penalties and a lot of discipline issues in that one. But it was a close game and was exciting to watch the end of it. Georgia beats Auburn. Auburn's terrible. Mississippi State's terrible. That game was way closer than it should have been. And then at Texas, who was number 1 in the nation. You have 2 big wins there, which get you, and you've been the best team in college football the last few years, right? So it gives you that name brand to go up there. But I like to sit there and go, well, Penn State has a ranked win. Penn State went to Morgantown, beat the hell out of West Virginia, even though we know West Virginia stinks. They went into US, but I'm sitting there going, well, they have a lot of talent on their team, and they're undefeated. Why am I jumping them? Losses and wins matter to me.
No, and they should, right? Because like it's all we have to go off of.
Yeah.
But we as fans, right? Like obviously the powers that be that make these rankings are going off of something a little different, right? They're spiking the Kool-Aid, so to speak. But
yeah, I mean, it's brand. A lot of it's brand. It's college football, right?
Well, you know what you need to do.
What's
you
that?
You need to start doing your own instead of an AP poll. You need to do your own SV Stevie Veschi top 25.
I should do that. All these guys
see how different it is. You know, next week start with.
I'll start one next week.
Start with the rankings with how they are right now, and next week after the results, how does that influence your rankings?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll do one.
I think that
can absolutely do one.
I think that could be fun.
Yeah, it just bothers me that you have Power 4 teams that we're into conference play. Like we've been in conference play for 5-6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you're playing people outside your conference. I know there are bigger matchups than others, but man, I look at 2 Big 12 teams that are undefeated they're not even top 9. They're sitting at 10 and 11.
You know what I think is always funny, because like whenever I hear like analysts refer to a game as like a trap game and it doesn't pan out that way at all. Like, so I think it's obvious I'm talking about Oregon and Purdue, right? A lot of people build that as possible or trap game for Oregon. Like they're going to overlook Purdue. It's a trap game. And then like Oregon comes in, doesn't miss a beat, not only shuts them out, puts up 35. It's total driver's seat the whole game. And it's like, we're just trying to generate like ratings on this game or something. Like, what's going on?
It's a Friday night stand. Because you know why people This people thought it was a trap game because Purdue plays one game a year. It's the weirdest thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always at home too. It's one game a year where they somehow are phenomenal. And
Just
they
turn
beat
up.
and they beat Ohio State and they beat Michigan and they beat Penn State or whatever. You're like, this team sucks. Like how this happened? So that's why they were looking at that as a trap game. However, if they did any bit of research at all, the week before was Purdue's week. They took Illinois, who's a top 25 team,
Yes.
to what, overtime or to the brink.
Yes.
That was the week. After that game, that Purdue's terrible. They're not doing anything. Like that wasn't a trap. Like they have their one game.
That's
so
funny.
if they did any research at all, but yeah, it's trying to drum up watchability, I guess. But I mean, I wanted to watch it just to see Oregon. We never get to see Oregon play because they're West Coast.
You want to know what was? You want to talk watchability? You want to know what I thought was the most watchable thing?
Give it to me.
For me, that, not obviously not a big college football guy. I'm trying to be, and so this made it a little easier because I made the Hurricanes my team to watch. The most watchable thing for football for me this week was Scotty Scheffler on College Game Day. Great town, great people in Louisville, but I can't pick them. give me my.
That was great.
Yeah, for those of you, I mean, it's a big callback. For those of you that don't know, that Louisville is where Scotty Scheffler was arrested prior to one of the majors this year, and so when he was on College Game Day for Miami versus Louisville, and they go through it, all the talking heads at the desk get to make their pick. It comes to Scotty Scheffler. Great town, great people, but I just can't pick Louisville.
That was so good.
That was great, and it was in Louisville too. Like
no, it wasn't. It was in Texas.
That's right.
Awesome.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because he's
Awesome.
That's right. He's a Texas boy.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, that was so funny. Oh my gosh!
How awesome too is that he's gets to wear the green jacket.
Mm-hmm. Just
College
move. Game Day. Yeah, I'll wear the green jacket.
Hey, where's your jacket? Oh well, I'll have one soon. Oh no, if I have something to say about it. Oh, watch out for this guy.
I believe that's Mr. Gilmore's. Anything else college football before we keep plugging along here? Anything?
A couple things. Iowa State had an 80-yard drive at the last second to end the game. My boy Rocco Becht still making things happen
against UCF.
Yeah, that was a bad matchup for Iowa State. That was UCF swap quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
And they run the football really well, and Iowa State's run defense it's not the best. It's not great. It's not terrible, but it's susceptible. And UCF was in desperation mode, and they really needed to win, and they started running the football. Iowa State that was a survive and advance game, and they barely survived, but it's all that matters.
Yeah.
Winning in the Big 12 is not easy, and they survived. Rocco Becht had probably his worst game, but you know what? All that counts is that last drive. Yeah. And what happened in the last drive? He goes down 80 yards, commanding them, runs it in for the touchdown, then runs it in for a 2-point conversion. He was phenomenal in the last drive. Your service academies, Army and Navy, continue to stay undefeated. Navy gets Notre Dame this week, of course, at a neutral site because, God forbid, Notre Dame plays a road game.
That game's always been huge, though. I don't remember the last time I saw.
Pack that stadium in Annapolis. Let's make it a home field advantage. Just garbage.
I think the last time I saw Notre Dame play in Annapolis,
or Navy play in Annapolis.
Notre Dame play Navy in Annapolis. I should be more specific. I was probably in elementary school, maybe middle school, and I was wearing a reversible Adidas windbreaker, like just to set the really that's old, right? That game's blown up, and it's one of those we're always gonna play this game, right? And I think because the game has gotten so big and it pulls so many people, yeah. I think it's just one of those things that it's just they're always gonna do it, and the game is so big. I've been to a lot of Navy Notre Dame games. in my time because of my dad, and that game always like had like professional like attendance levels. At least like that was the feeling and that was the vibe. So I understand playing it at a neutral site because you just have to play at a place where you can accommodate that, right? Like make it worth your while.
I mean, but they did that with the Georgia. I mean, I guess Notre Dame Navy is bigger than Notre Dame Georgia Tech, but they for some reason moved the Georgia Tech game from their stadium, which is a mile down the road. If you've never been to Atlanta, Georgia Tech is a mile or 2 miles from the Mercedes-Benz Dome. They moved it 2 miles to the Atlanta Falcons place, and the stadium was like half full. And I thought it was stupid, but I digest. Maryland beat USC, by the way. USC is 3-4 now.
Saw that. Go Terps.
They're terrible. Kansas State goes into Morgantown and beats the ever-living piss out of my Mountaineers.
Yeah, that was a rough showing, to say the least there, buddy.
Yes, that was a bit rough, and a lot of people this is just all the hope is gone. That was such a great start to the year of wow, Pat McAfee shows up in Morgantown, place is going nuts. Morgantown is first time in a long time there's hype around this team, and then you get embarrassed by Penn State, then you lose your rival after being up 10, then you lose the Coal Rush, and then you get another primetime game for some reason. And Kansas State, who, by the way, those two teams, I think this is what bothered me about this game so much, is that those two teams are built almost identically. They're the roster build of those two teams is great offensive line, good defensive line, a mobile quarterback, running backs that can show out. Your receivers aren't great, but they're not anything to scoff about. They're okay.
Sure.
And almost identical build, and you go, okay, well, the only thing different really is the coaching. And Kansas State goes into your house and beats you 45-18. There were some injuries on West Virginia, but it didn't matter. That was not an excuse. And I bring up the West Virginia thing, not just because I went there and they're terrible, because you're like, well, why are you talking about West Virginia? They stink. Here's why. Because now that Vanderbilt has been ranked, there are only 3 Power 4 schools that have not been ranked since 2019. And that's when Neil Brown came in. So the head coach of West Virginia, when he came in to coach the Mountaineers, he came in 2019. 3 programs from Power 4 schools that have not been ranked since that. Rutgers, Texas Tech, and West Virginia. That means UVA was ranked in that time span that West Virginia was not. That's pitiful. 3 schools.
Yeah, that's tough. Yeah, that's just, what do you say about that?
It's inexcusable. It really is. It is, to have a team that I like the roster build of this team, and I think a lot of people did. And for some reason, there's some disconnect from the roster to gameplay and what happens executing on the field or what's going on in practice. I have no idea. But how this team goes 9-4 last year, brings back an entire offense, says they improved the defense. The linebackers have been pretty good. Defensive line, I think, has been good. Offensive line's been one of the best in college football. That's usually when you win games. It's in the trenches, and they have good trenches.
The boys don't hate to lose.
But for some reason, Garrett Green's been awful. By the way, he's a great guy. He does a lot of great things in the community there. But man, did he regress as a quarterback? And it's tough to see. It really is. West Virginia fans deserve better than this. They're gonna stop showing up to games. And guess who? Play at 7 o'clock again, prime time again at Arizona. Who's watching that one? It's a bad one to watch. Anyway, that's my West Virginia. They've taken all hope.
Yeah. Yeah. Cue up taps. They're
yeah.
We're watching.
Yeah,
we're watching for fun at this point. Just it's a habit. It's a habit. We're gonna put it on. We're gonna bear it. I mean,
I'm not gonna not watch the game. I mean, I'm still a fan.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of not watching games, I think that's as good a transition as any to get into the brief notes that I have about the NFL.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Speaking of not watching games, I'm throwing this out there, and I will say this every time this comes around. I cannot watch these London games. I cannot watch these European games that are like that come on like I live on the East Coast. Okay, football Sunday starts 1:00. That gives me enough time to get my like Sunday chores done. You know, your grocery shoppings, your laundry, your chores, your domestic duties, and
duties.
Yes, nice. I said it. I totally said it. And then, you know, you get all that done, you bust your ass, and then you're rewarded by being able to sit on the couch and watch some Sunday afternoon football all the way through the evening, right? The 1:00 game, the 4:20 games, and then the Sunday night football. Waiting all day for a Sunday night carry.
Thank you, carry. Yeah.
And like these London games are so they're a tough watch. It's a tough watch, and on top of that, the Patriots are so bad. They're so bad. Like, why is that? Why is that the London game? You know, like you figure if you want people to tune in, like make it like a good game. But I'm not waking up and I'm not like disregarding my responsibilities as an adult to watch my team just get their just shit pushed
by the Jaguars.
Yes, by the Jaguars. I won't do it.
Correct. That is the correct London pronunciation.
Jaguars.
Jaguar.
Yeah. Or or you know, you just the Jags. I drive a Jag. But yeah, I'm not doing it. The Patriots are bad, so it's hard enough for me to like watch football anyways. And like we said it very briefly like in our like pre-show. It's just there isn't anything that's compelling me to watch.
No.
Right.
I mean,
the quality
of play.
Looking
at
the quality of play doesn't feel good, and you know, like that's I think a big part of it. But I also think another big part of it is that like the guard has changed, and the guys that we grew up watching and having posters of, and like you know, like you go and you play pickup football in the park with your friends on Thanksgiving. You're like, oh, I'm Tom Brady. You know, like it's like the guards changed, so it makes it a little more, just slightly more difficult to watch, and like the storylines for me just aren't there this year. I will watch because there are a few teams outside of the Patriots that I'm invested in. We talked a little bit about it last week. I love watching the Lions. I think I will root for Dan Campbell and Jared Goff as hard as any Lions fan would.
Yeah, I think your likability / watchability teams: Detroit, Minnesota, Green Bay, and Washington. That's kind of where I'd put that.
Yeah,
because those are teams that I mean, maybe not. And what's crazy about that is just named 3 NFC North teams.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
Maybe it's because we don't live in that area to where I'm like, oh yeah, like I would love to watch those guys. Yeah. Like I have no skin in the game, but if you're
Detroit, like
if you're a Minnesota fan, you're like, well, screw you, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, Viking.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, the NFC North teams, I think for me at least, have been by far the most watchable. I've thoroughly enjoyed watching the NFC North teams. Speaking of which, the Lions defeated the previously undefeated Vikings. So, Lions handing them the Vikings their first loss of the season. I think the other thing that like I think it's got and it's definitely watchable for you because of your household is Pittsburgh, right?
Yes.
I know your wife is
My wife is a diehard Steelers.
Yeah. And we had a pretty good storyline there, right? We got to see Russ.
Let Russ cook.
He's smiling big in the town. He's Russell Wilson. He's throwing it around. Here we go.
There we go. Play some Renegade. I think people were up in arms about, how are you going to bench Justin Fields? He's 4-2. He's played really, really well. Well, Mike Tomlin's one of the best coaches. He's a Hall of Famer. He's 100%. One of the best coaches ever. And he's one of the best coaches ever for a reason. He knows what he has with the two different quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
And Russell Wilson gives you a little bit more offensive firepower, and he runs it just a little bit more the way Mike Tomlin wants, right?
Yes.
And by the way, Russell Wilson has a Super Bowl ring as well, lest we forget. He was on a Hall of Fame pace for the longest time.
Yes.
And he might be quirky to some people.
Unlimited.
Yeah, maybe quirky's a nice term for it. But he's just the perfect football weirdo for Mike Tomlin.
He's a yes
right?
man.
Yeah, I mean he's extremely coachable. Mike Tomlin knows what he's doing,
and I think that's
Russell
really
Wilson knows what he's doing.
I honestly think that's kind of what he's lacked since leaving Seattle is a strong veteran coach.
Well, you had Sean Payton.
Yeah,
Sean Payton did not they weren't meant for each other there.
No, they weren't. But also, it's not. I don't think it's not the Sean Payton from years ago. Love the guy. I love that he's still doing it. Sean Payton, probably a Hall of Fame coach. Yes.
Well, maybe not after the bounty gate.
Yeah, that's true. I realized what I said after I said it, but
and having Kevin James play you in a movie.
he's gonna be the Hall of extremely, extremely good coaches.
Yeah, he's a very good coach. Yeah,
definitely not the same Sean Payton. Whereas, when Russ was in Seattle, Pete Carroll, top of his game. Mike Tomlin, steady stays at the top. And the Stiller fans should definitely put a little more stock in your coach, right?
See all
these Steeler fans come out and say, "What are you doing?"
I know it's kind of been
your coach,
because for some reason Mike Tomlin getting you to the playoffs every single year isn't good enough for them, right?
Crazy.
And then which is insane because start looking around the league, it's hard to get to the postseason and it's hard to win. Only one team, by the way, wins the Super Bowl. If people don't realize that, there's only one team that ends up winning at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Right? Every other team loses.
Mm-hmm.
You do not have the ability to win a game and go play golf somewhere without being the Super Bowl champ. So let's be just a little bit more realistic, NFL fans.
And that's the best way to put it too, is you should, most teams should know what they're getting. I'm gonna bring it back to New England for just a hot second, to kind of just piggyback off of your point. There are a lot of people out there who are saying Gerard Mayo should be fired. What are we doing? No. Your team was not good. Our team was not good last year. Why? Just because we get a new coach, you think this year is going to be totally different? No, it's a process.
You thought Belichick was the problem?
We need to trust the process, okay? And Steelers fans should be able to trust that process more than anything because they've had consistency for the longest time.
It's a spoiled fan base right now because you've never had a losing season.
Yes.
Under Mike Tomlin, they have never had a losing season.
Mm-hmm.
Think about how absurd that stat is.
And
he's been there for how long?
We're gonna start getting pretty much the majority of our lives. It's getting to the point where I'm sure that talking heads and
16 years.
Yeah,
he's been in Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
he has never had a losing
of my life.
season. That's insane. That he's never had a losing season in 16 years.
First ballot.
And he has a Super Bowl ring, right? So, by the way, you know where Mike Tomlin came from? William and Mary.
Weird. So he's
Go
smart.
Tribe. Yes.
He's smart.
Well, of course. You don't do what he's doing without being smart.
Yeah, well, Yeah, okay, sure, I'll concede. But like it's getting to like Mike Tomlin's getting to the point in his career where like these sort of like fly off the handle moments from fans and like analysts are gonna like people are gonna start doing to him what they did to Brady. You know, like is this the year?
Yeah.
You know, is this the
he's
year
washed
that
up.
he loses more than he wins? Is this the year? You know, like it's gonna happen, and when it does, I'll be the first one to press the record button and say, "Shut up." There's the cliff. He's driving right towards it. But yeah, so Russ gets the start and gets his first win of the season in Pittsburgh over the Jets. Not really a whole lot there to talk about with the Jets. I really don't want to get into it all.
No, I'm not. They don't deserve to be talked about.
No, they don't. They really, really don't. Kansas City, Mahomes, Kelsey, the squad, they look good. And like,
what's
also
scary?
Go ahead.
What's scary about this Kansas City team is that they're still in experimental mode, right? They're still just like, oh, what do we have? We'll still win this game, 6-0. What do we have? Like we're gonna get into the postseason, and then we'll really turn it on.
Yeah,
because we know exactly what works and what doesn't work, and that's what's scary. You just beat San Francisco in San Francisco, and again, it's not like they're doing anything special. They're not playing, their best ball, and
that's something I've noticed about Kansas City is that like I can watch ESPN on a Monday and a Tuesday, and it's not just constant reruns of Patrick Mahomes under center and driving down the field, because it feels like everyone is starting to cool on that because like that's just where the bar is, like
yes.
He's playing good enough to win games, but he's not doing all of this like, wow, look at this like no look shovel pass, look at this behind the back like dish or whatever, you know what I mean? Like he doesn't need to do all that, and it seems like he's kind of maturing
as we mature.
The relationship matures. Yeah, the relationship matures. Yes, as Patrick Mahomes matures, his game also matures. And like again, and like to liken him to Tom Brady, TB12. Like Tom Brady knew like I don't have to do anything sexy. I can carve teams up with just like a 5-yard pass here, a 6-yard pass here, and just keep marching down the field. I don't have to do it. Like it seems like he's playing without any pressure on him, and it's a good thing. Right now, give it like a couple more weeks. If they're still undefeated, maybe that pressure, that outside noise kind of creeps in on him. Like, oh, are they going to be the first undefeated team and do it for a 3-peat? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's just that they'll lose a game where you go, how the hell did they lose that game? And I'm looking
and they'll be better for it.
Right. And I'm looking at the Raiders. Okay. That's the game I'm looking at where you go...
in-division rival game, right?
Yeah. And you go, well, the Raiders stink. Like, that game's at home. How do you lose that? And, well, it's just one of those things that happens. Right? Something just weird happens on...
Yes.
It's the NFL. There's 17 games. Something weird happens.
ESPN and Fox Sports will blow it out of proportion, but the Chiefs
and they'll say, is it time to panic in Kansas City?
No, it's not.
And then they're going to come out, and win the next like 3 games, and you're like, oh no, they're fine. Exactly. Yeah, they'll get into the playoffs, they'll be fine, and we'll see them in the Super Bowl. Right, mark it down. Yeah. Until someone knocks them off. Just
no one is showing me anything.
Do not bet again. If you are a gambling person,
don't bet.
Just stop betting against Kansas City.
The only time that like I could see like a safe bet against Kansas City is if like they play a team where like that like the physicality is going to get brought and they're going to be bruised up the next week, some shit like that. But like no, don't bet against them. Like they're going to be fine.
They play at the Steelers on Christmas Day. It's kind of fun.
That'll be Merry Christmas, Steelers fans.
The game doesn't make any sense. There's no way. I'm looking at their schedule, and I feel like this is a glitch. Like there's no way. It says.
I mean, it might be
12/20. Well, it says 12/21. They're playing the Texans, and then it says Christmas Day. They're playing the Steelers. You're not going to turn around in 4 days, are you?
I mean,
that doesn't. Is that a Thursday night? Like, is that
this is the first year we're playing on Christmas. Remember, so they got to work it out somehow.
Freaking rest. If I'm the Steelers at that point, because you're probably at that point, you're probably in this, like, you're going to be in the postseason at that point. I'd be resting my starters. I wouldn't bother playing them on a short rest for that.
Yeah.
Anyway, either way, Kansas City continues to roll. Baltimore is fun. I would say if you want to like dive into some teams like Detroit, Baltimore, they're fun watches. Washington's fun watch. Jaden Daniels hurt his rib. He might be out for next week. He's a question mark, but he's been phenomenal.
He's been a lot of fun to watch. Yeah. And that's pretty much what I got for football.
Yep, I'm good with the NFL.
So real quick, before we get into our favorites, I'm going to break down a quick Mimosa Minute. Mimosa Minute, where we highlight and champion women's athletics, brought to you by our sponsor, Main & Co., creators of the modern mimosa. Go check them out at mainsip.com. Perfect gift for, wedding parties, bachelorette parties, things of that nature. Personally, I love a good modern mimosa. 2 ingredients, sparkling wine, orange juice. Put it in a can, seal it up, send it to me. I'm good to go. And keep a sharp eye out for their flavors to come. But anyways, Mimosa Minute, championing women's athletics. Here we go. I got 2 things. One, New York Liberty defeat the Minnesota Lynx in Game 5 to win their first WNBA title. Congratulations to my New York Liberty, Sabrina Ionescu. We knew you could do it. I specifically, out of the 2 of us, knew you could do it.
Yeah, I feel like the March Madness when people don't know the teams and they oh, what's the mascot? Yeah. What's the logo? Link is cool.
Yeah, but yeah, that was a really, really good series, really fun watch. I think this podcast certainly, of all things, helped me, pay a little closer attention to some women athletics. I mean, you guys have all seen that I've been all in on the LPGA. I locked in for some WNBA postseason. It was a lot of fun to watch. I was pretty invested hardcore in the Liberty. So congrats to them in their title win. Enjoy the off season. Enjoy the celebrations. But it's back to work next season. All right, time to go 2 in a row. My second thing, I gotta throw it to our girl in Seattle, Jessica Campbell. Last time we checked in, the Kraken were 0-2, rough start. They've battled back to win 4 straight, 4-2. And nice. I caught one of their games the other night, and Seattle went on a 5-on-3 power play, called a timeout, and players go over to the bench, and who's on the whiteboard drawing it up for the 5-on-3 but our girl Jessica Campbell. Huge stuff. And it was the 5-on-3 power play executed to perfection. Everything looked good. Seattle's firing on all cylinders. Go Kraken, and go Jessica Campbell. Congratulations. Again, she is the first female coach in the NHL. She's the assistant coach to Dan Bylsma and the Seattle Kraken. But congratulations to her. Hope the season continues to go well for you. Anything else? What do you got? You got anything?
I got one thing. UVA sure. Women in diving won their 4th straight, I believe, national championship. They are now officially a dynasty. Gretchen Walsh, the Olympian, she is ridiculous. Yeah, so she led that team, and UVA women in diving is that's the equivalent of Oklahoma's softball team, right?
Hell yeah.
The absolute dynasty.
because that whole team were our whole
half
Olympic
that team's Olympians.
Yeah, our whole wasn't our whole Olympic team UVA swimmers and divers?
It was UVA and Stanford.
Yeah. But that's awesome. That's really good. Congratulations. Yep. Congratulations to them.
So cool. That's all I've got for women's athletics with that, but I was going to use that and segue to the other Virginia news.
Oh, yeah, sure. So, Modern Mimosa, thank you. That's our Mimosa Minute. Let's segue. Transition us. Let's do it.
So, if you weren't following college basketball, because it hasn't started yet, obviously, we're about 2.5 weeks away, I think, from the season starting. Well, a bombshell of news broke earlier this week, or last week, where Tony Bennett, the head coach for UVA, the Wahoos, because we can't say Cavaliers, for the UVA Wahoos, announced his retirement at 55 years old. And it just seemed really odd timing. There's no health issue. So it's not that. So
There
thank
has
goodness.
to be something going on there.
No, he said basically when I no longer feel like I am equipped to be the best person for this job, I'm done. And so we saw this a few years ago with Jay Wright retiring at Villanova.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, that doesn't make any sense. He's relatively young, like, especially in the coaching world. Like, he's at the top of his game. Like, why'd he just retire? Well, Jay Wright and Tony Bennett are pretty similar. And Tony Bennett actually called him, like, a couple of days before he retired and was like, oh, like, yeah, after that conversation, I knew I was done. And basically he's saying, like, the college athletics for him are not – it's not a place where he wants to be a head coach. With all the – he wants the players to be – yeah, he wants them to be paid and everything, but there's no – the transfer portal and just the no safeguards on anything and everything's insane. He can't coach the way he wants to coach. And he's so – like, he's also one of the nicer guys too in the game. So, like, when he says, and genuine, when he says he's not doing something because of it, like, even the president of, or the athletic director, I think, of UVA came out and said, like, if Tony Bennett thinks there's a problem with this, there's a huge problem. Like, we need to fix college athletics. Like, this is a big issue. But this was heartbreaking for Who's fans, and there's a reason why I'm wearing my Virginia National Champions shirt. He, in the last 15 years, he's been not just one of the best coaches in the ACC, one of the best coaches in the country. I believe he was the 2-time coach of the year while he was at Virginia. He's UVA's all-time winningest coach. He has a national championship. And Nick sent us a stat where out of the players in the NBA who were not 4- or 5-star recruits out of high school, no other college has more in the league than UVA. UVA has the 6th most players in the league among colleges.
It's incredible.
None of those guys were blue chips. None of those guys were one and dones. Were people that you were like, oh, this guy's a McDonald's All-American. Oh, he's going to Duke. He's going to UNC. He's going to Kentucky. Whatever it may be, Kansas. Well, UVA, they had a program. They won a national championship, and they put some people into the NBA. Like, notable NBA players to come out, Tony Bennett. Klay Thompson, when Tony Bennett was at Washington State, if you didn't know that. Brogdon, Malcolm Brogdon, Joe Harris, DeAndre Hunter, Trey Murphy. Trey Murphy just signed a $100 million contract. That's like the 4th $100 million contract that a player from UVA has signed. So as much as people maybe didn't like his style or whatever, he was one of my favorite coaches. Yeah. This one hurt me because even if Nick didn't go to UVA, I'd still be a fan. Like, that's how much I really, really like Tony Bennett. So this one hurt. Yeah, but
he's with his reasons for behind doing it, like, it's one of those things, like, you doubt you'll see him anytime soon, if ever
he's
again
done
in college athletics.
Yeah, he's done. Jay Wright seems happy. He's done. Yeah, Tony Bennett, he's not coming back. That was he said he'll be around the program and he'll help, but he's like, I'm not the person fit to lead this team.
And puts UVA in a bind.
Yeah, so they named an interim head coach. They're going to do a thorough coaching search when the season's over, but you never know. This guy might be Ron Sanchez is the coach. He's been Tony Bennett's assistant for the last 5 years. So it seems pretty handpicked. Like, if he was going to retire, like, just here's my 2 guys and pick one of these guys. Yeah, that's kind of what he did. But they're also I'm waiting to see if any players transfer, because once a coach does something like this, they have 3 weeks or 20 days to transfer.
Because they went there to play for that coach.
Correct. So that and it's kind of weird because they were talking about how he's changing his offense. He's going to be a little bit more up-paced. He's going to let them play a little bit more freely. They love their transfer class that they got in, and he likes the recruits coming out of high school. He's like, I really like this team. He's like, but he's like, after having a discussion and everything, he's like, I'm not in it. Yeah. So he went from being really excited to then he was just like, oh, I'm done. but he's a guy that when he does something, like he's at peace with his decision.
For sure.
Also, there is no other coach in, I think, any sport and in the history of any sport that can lose the game that he lost as the 1 seed to the 16 as the first 1-16 loss in March Madness history, and then to come back the next year and win a national championship. There's no one else.
Definitively, too.
Yeah.
They looked so good when they won, too.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. There's no other person that can do that. No other person would take that, what happened to them, that well.
No.
That's how, like,
a lot of administrations wouldn't take it very well either.
Yeah.
Let alone, like, set aside, like, personal feelings, like, if I was the coach and I lost, like, forget about how I felt. At that point, like, a lot of places, the decision's out of my hands. Some people might go and some schools might go find a different guy.
Which would be ridiculous because he was, I think, 31-2 that year.
Yeah. But still, like, to be the first one to do it, and, like, obviously statistics will tell you it's just a matter of time before something like that happens. But, it's not a good look. I mean, when I called Nick after that game was over, he was screaming about how his school was a national embarrassment.
Yeah, and they came back and won the whole damn thing.
Yeah, and
they had to.
Absolutely, right? Absolutely.
But I mean, there's no one better for that for him to redeem themselves and to win a national championship. Like, no one deserved it more than Tony Bennett. Just an awesome coach. I absolutely love. And by the way, defense wins championships because he was all defense. So that was my my spiel on Tony Bennett. It sucks that we don't get to watch him on the sidelines this year.
No, but happy travels, Coach. Thank you for everything that you've done for UVA and for helping keep Virginia good in terms of basketball. I've always said, like, when Virginia schools are doing good, especially in March Madness, like, it fills you with a sense of pride, right? Like, I might not have gone there, you might not have gone there, but, like, if a Virginia school is doing good, I'm happy. Coach Bennett was a huge part of a lot of those feelings over the last couple of years, and said, Coach, thank you very much for everything you've done. Happy travels. Best of luck to you. Damn, are we going to miss you?
Yeah, that one hurts.
Yeah, it does. But all right, so let's bring it full circle, and let's talk favorites. Okay, let's get this. Yeah, let's pick up the mood a little bit. It feels a little dismal right now, but we're going to talk about our favorites. Our favorite section, as always, is brought to you by One Legacy Title and Escrow. Your legacy matters. So this week we talked about we've done a lot of talking about pitch sequences. In the past, we've done our favorite relief pitchers, things like that. So it's only fitting. World Series coming up. Pitching is going to matter the most right now, more than ever. We're going to do our favorite pitchers. Okay, so
starters.
Starting pitchers. Thank you. Good point of clarification. Starting pitchers. You want to go or you want me to go?
How you feeling? You want to go first?
You go first.
I think I went first last week.
That's fine. I'll rip through this real quick. All right. Honorable mention: knuckleballer, R.A. Dickey. We're going R.A.
Toronto Dickey. Blue Jays.
We're going R.A. Dickey. I just remember, dude, when that dude was wheeling and dealing, you couldn't turn on ESPN without seeing an R.A. Dickey outing, dude. He was everywhere, and like, I've said it before on this podcast, and I'll continue to say it during baseball, but with knuckleballers being virtually extinct right now, it makes the ones we've seen previously that much more special. So I'm going to shout it out to R.A. Dickey. He was a lot of fun to watch, He's, I think, the first pitcher I've ever actually, like, centered, like, oh, what do I want to watch tonight? Like,
watching R.A. Dickey
Is Dickey pitching? Okay, yeah, put that on. Let's put that on. Or at a minimum, like, I'll keep it on the last, and I'll keep hitting the recall button, and I'll go back and check on it while I watch something else. But, honorable mention, R.A. Dickey. Number 5, another guy who, for a very brief window, was worldwide, and it's Mr. Tim Lincecum.
Yes.
I'm going Tim Lincecum here. The dude, he came in, blew the doors off the league for a couple years, and then vanished.
He did.
Like, I think like it was probably like a couple. I have a very distinct like thought. Like, I think I was toying around with getting into fantasy baseball, and I was thinking about like, okay, so who do you draft as pitchers? How does that work for fantasy baseball? I've never played before, and I was like, I somehow arrived at like, I wonder what Tim Lincecum's doing, and like to my surprise, he was not in the league. I thought maybe he had just like blown up and like wasn't as good, like just hit a wall somewhere, but no, he just poof gone. Tim Lincecum's gone.
Yeah, so he was in the show for 10 years, but really it's more like 7 because the first year
Tommy John.
Well, the first year he throws, he's a rookie, age 23, throws 146 innings. And then the last 2 years he was hurt in 2015 and 2016. So he's really got like a 7-year stretch. And you're right. I mean, came in just awesome.
Won 2 Cy Youngs, right? Was it 2?
Let me check here. Yes, he has.
Yeah.
He has 2 Cy Youngs.
Yeah.
And he's got, 3 World Series? Or 2 World Series?
Yeah.
Two World Series, I believe.
The dude, he just came in, blew the doors off the league, and vanished. And, like, for that small window where he was just, like, soaking it up, that's another dude where, like, you go out of your way to watch him, right? He was, like, go back then, he was Paul Skeens, right? Like, you make a point to watch him.
He's got 3 World Series.
Insane. Absolutely insane. So, yeah, Tim Lincecum 5. Number 4, I'm going Randy Johnson. I still enjoy watching Randy Johnson highlights, pulling them up on YouTube and looking them up. Purple, teal, and white pinstripes all day. Randy Johnson at 4. Number 3, this is probably going to shock a lot of people, but I'm going to go Pedro Martinez.
Yes.
And it's for a very, very specific reason. So I have an uncle who lives up in Boston. And when we were younger, like our family would travel up to New Jersey to visit the Jersey family. My uncle would come down from Boston and we would all be together at my like Graham's house in Jersey. And my uncle swore up and down that Kevin, my brother, looked like Pedro. And so like he'd come in and he'd say hi to everybody. And he'd be like, oh, like T, my mom, how you doing? Steve, Steven, Jackie, Aaron. And then he'd see Kevin. He'd be like, Pedro! and the first time he did it, everyone was like, what the hell is Tim talking about? And he was like, he looks like Pedro Martinez. And like, so it was just always so funny to like liken Kevin to Pedro Martinez. I always thought that was funny. But yeah, I mean, obviously also like a very lights out pitcher. Like it would be weird to say like, oh, he looks like this no-name pitcher who never did anything. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So Pedro Martinez in the 3-hole. Number 2, Greg Maddux.
Okay. Yep.
Right. Greg Maddux. I mean, the legendary, absolute legend. And then number 1, I'm going Jim Palmer.
Of course you are, because you have a freaking his replica statue.
Yeah, man. Just recently taken out of the box. Legends Park. We were there. Yeah, I got Jim Palmer. I mean, even if he's just throwing the first pitch out at an Orioles game, it's electric. Jim Palmer.
Electric.
Yeah, that's that. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna pass it over to you.
All right, I've got 2 honorable mentions this week.
All right.
This week,
Brian Wilson.
He's not a starter. He's a closer. Great beard, by the way, for Brian Wilson. But
he dyed it.
I'm gonna start. Honorable mention number 1, Nolan Ryan.
Yeah.
Just flamethrower intimidation factor. Put Robin Ventura in a headlock and beat the ever-living hell out of him. Nolan Ryan.
Yes.
Number 6, another one that was on your list. Big-time Timmy Jim, Tim Lincecum. There was something about his wind-up in action and the long
hair. And the hair, too, dude,
Yep.
And the hair. Like...
Oh, yeah.
People sold hats with the hair like hanging off the back of it so you could be like Tim, like
awesome.
It's electric.
Awesome. Number 5, a local Richmonder, Justin Verlander. By the way, you know where he went to school?
Where did he go to school?
Old Dominion. He's a Monarch.
ODU.
Yeah. Justin Verlander, it's almost it's almost weird to say that. I feel like he's underrated. I feel like for some reason we forget about him and like all of his accomplishments and how just absolutely amazing he is.
Because he's quiet.
He is quiet. Yeah,
he's quiet. You know, like
married
people
to
will
Kate
talk.
Upton.
People will talk about like Scherzer not just because he was an ace, but because he was a psycho. But like Verlander was just like your quiet type. You know what I mean? Like he
just went about his business. Let me throw 98 and just blow it by you. And
I'm gonna come in, punch the clock, do my time, and then clock out. And go home, have a beer.
I'm looking at my list, and I think he may be the most polished pitcher on my list, which is pretty incredible.
Interesting moving up the list.
Yes, so we're going to keep going. Number 4, a guy that for some reason was left out of your favorite movie, Moneyball, Barry Zito. The iconic curveball that he had.
Wasn't
the
in
white
Moneyball.
cleats. He was not in Moneyball. Should have been. One of the biggest reasons why that team was good. But just big lefty, big time curveball. If you ever seen it, it was more of a like slow curve, like break than probably Kershaw. Like that's how ridiculous this curveball was. And for some reason, it was just knee buckling constantly. Love Barry Zito's curveball. Number 3, I went with someone else that was on your list, Pedro.
Yeah, there we go.
Pedro was so good. Absolute dominant. And he had the attitude to
He was
the
perfect embodiment of a Boston athlete, right?
Yes.
He was the mass hole.
And remember that World Series, I think it was with the 2000 World Series, or not World Series, I'm sorry, the All-Star game, the like 2000 All-Star game where he just mowed down, I think it was like McGuire, Bonds, and Sosa or something, or whoever it was. I forget like exactly who it was, but it was like all these steroid users that he just mowed through, and it was like, whoa, Pedro's so good. The perfect embodiment of Boston and just the perfect attitude. Just nasty. Number 2, another guy that was nasty, Madison Bumgarner.
Yes.
Big lefty. Just
you want to talk about psychos.
Big country. I have a lot of psychos on my list. It's a theme.
He is a psycho.
It is a theme on my list. Barry Zito and Justin Verlander are not, but everyone else is an absolute psycho on this list.
Yes.
Mad Bum, there was something about big country that was, just don't mess with this dude. I think he was from Hickory, North Carolina, I want to say.
Yeah.
I loved Madison Bumgarner. Lefty, by the way, for a guy his size, he wasn't throwing 98. He was throwing low 90s. But he had great location and just little funky, this just funky delivery that made him so good. Number 1, arguably the biggest psychopath on this list, Mad Max.
Yeah.
One eye's blue, one eye's brown. Let's go.
Yeah.
Don't know which one you're looking at.
That guy.
I loved him. He's one of my favorite, not just pitchers, one of my favorite players of all time.
He seems like he's just an overall like cool dude.
He's a weirdo.
I'd love to get a beer with him though. Like
really?
he seems like a good,
I don't know, the people in the dugout are like, this dude's odd when he's not pitching.
He seems like he'd be a fun clubhouse guy. Like I'd imagine he probably gets into some antics and like seeing him like in the dugout when he's not pitching, like it seems like he's usually got something going on. I appreciate that about him.
I feel like if he wasn't a pitcher, he'd be in jail somewhere because he was a serial killer. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, pitching may have saved lives. His God-given ability to pitch may have saved lives.
He'd just be a family annihilator if he wasn't pitching. Like, what the hell?
I don't know. He's absolute psycho, but channeled into pitching. God, I love Max Scherzer. Yeah, I was at his 20 strikeout game in DC when he struck out the ridiculous Tigers lineup that year. World Series champ. I think a 2-time World Series champ now, but God, he's just a guy that you want on your team in the big moments. And every time you saw him come in, he's like, I think in that Nationals World Series, he's like, I'm pitching till my arm falls off. Like his arm was cooked.
He closed a game.
Yeah,
then
his arm was absolutely cooked. And he said, "I don't care, I'm going because this is my chance to win. I'm going, and we're gonna win this damn thing." Like that's what I love about Scherzer. He's telling you like you come in to get him out of the game. He tells you when he's done.
That's so funny that you like covered both ends of that like
Nolan Ryan, Max Scherzer,
2010. Not even just that. I'm thinking like just like from like it was like 2010 to like 2015, 14, 15 with Verlander and Scherzer on the Tigers.
They
like,
were on the tie, yeah.
You're just covering both ends of that wide spectrum of like attitude and just overall demeanor.
That Tigers team with those two on it and not winning a World Series was a damn shame.
Criminal.
We can talk about the '98 Braves or whatever.
Wasn't Price in that lineup too at one point? Wasn't David Price there? Price. Like, wasn't he there in like 2014?
No, he might be later. No, because Scherzer was already on the Nats at that point. I think he might be later.
But yeah, they had it was Verlander, Scherzer, and Cabrera would have still been there too.
Rick Porcello.
Like that was a squad.
David Price was there. Anibal Sanchez, Drew Smiley.
Yes,
that's
criminal.
Yeah, 2014. You're right. 2014 Tigers.
It was right there at the end, and like I remember thinking like they're all in right now. If the Tigers don't get it done here, they might never get it done.
That was because that was very close to when Miggy had the Triple Crown too.
Yes.
So this team had the best hitter on the planet and
3 lights out pitchers in their rotation. And I'm pretty sure
Verlander at that point. I think Verlander at that point was unreal.
Yes, and I think all 3 of those pitchers they had a healthy team too.
Yes.
Like what the hell happened?
That was that one. We talk about the '98 Braves and their pitching, and you're like, how'd this team not win?
That's got to be one of the biggest
World
misses.
Series. Well, the Tigers did it, and so if you, I'd love to. We don't have time for it, but
no, we don't.
I would love to talk about 2014 Detroit versus '98 Braves.
We need to do
which one's more disappointing there.
We could do a whole episode of revisiting,
bring in the rosters. Yeah, let's do that.
Revisiting disappointing stuff because that's criminal. That team right there, you got to feel some type of way if you're a Detroit Tigers fan. Guatemala, what do you think?
Guatemala.
Yeah, Guatemala. What are our thoughts? Golly. All right. Well, good list, good times, good friends. That's gonna do it for us here on another edition of What Caught My Eye. Episodes drop noon every Wednesday, Spotify and YouTube. Check out our socials. We're on X, Instagram, and Facebook. If you think we missed anything, or if you have anything that you thought maybe we should have gotten to, or any differing takes than what we have, we don't really know what the hell we're talking about, so we'd love to hear from you. Interact with us, and maybe we'll throw some koozies and some stickers at you. You never know. But stay tuned. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for being here. We love you. We appreciate you. Be decent to each other. There it is. There's her koozie if you're watching. If not, take a look real quick. But until next time, take care, Guatemala.